and
I'm sorry, I noticed a button.
oh, it's okay. Was that hold? Okay. All right, cool. But I've noticed that that Nation Outside presentation that we were referring to and talking about the fair housing ordinance was unfortunately not uploaded online. And therefore we had asked our then staff liaison to please put it online. And I don't believe that it is still. So Lori, is that something that I'm happy to forward it to you right now, actually, but it is the Nation Outside presentation that they created for our commission back in June, July, sometime, that kind of like detailed a little bit more about what this like fair housing ordinance change would be and include. And there was a lot of really great information in that that wasn't captured in the ordinance amendment that we voted to approve. And I think that is where a lot of this like miscommunication has come from among our commission and our staff and our council and our public, which is really unfortunate. So I'm happy to forward it to you in this moment. We can I can go back and look exactly when we discussed it, but I think it would be helpful to put it in that agenda packet.
In that past agenda packet.
Yes, I do think that would be helpful, just so it's present for people to be able to see that. So I'm going to email that to you in this moment. And then I also want to bring attention to that one of the things that we are discussing is not included in the agenda packet online. And that is something that we will also make amendment to. And in the meantime, I printed copies for my fellow commissioners from my home printer, but that is not funded by the city of Ypsi, unfortunately. So that will be available through hopefully the future agenda packets with an amendment. And that's the resolution for our community wellness forum series that Commissioner Jackson alluded to. So thank you all, everyone else who commented in public comment, and looking forward to more of that discussion on the fair housing when we get to that. Moving on into old business now, the first thing on our agenda is the Human Relations Commission bylaws. So first discussion is, for sure, is we need to add a couple of items to our normal process for commission meetings. So our bylaws are quite long, and I was able to read through them and make some notes on where like maybe potential amendments could occur. But again, I think that would be a nice conversation when Vice Chair House is also present. But I do think that in the meantime, allowing a motion to amend our bylaws to include agenda approval and also a like parking lot area for us to be able to have as our normal order of business meeting, which is section 4 and article 5 of our bylaws, for anyone who would like to refer to that. Those bylaws were emailed to us by our city staff liaison. Thank you for that. And so you should be able to see where that amendment would occur. So that is like my first proposal. And so I would like to make a motion to amend Article 5, Section 4 to include an agenda approval and also a parking lot area that will allow us to keep tabs on where our different tabled items are, so that way they do not fall through the cracks, and that we are able to kind of keep tabs of where they are throughout the process of discussion. And thank you again for that suggestion, Lori. So yes, I would like to make that motion. And do I have a second?
Second. Oh.
Commissioner Dulos, we're going to say seconded that. So a motion and a second. And do we have all in favor of that? Okay. Do we have any opposed to that? Okay, I do believe I need people to say aye, right, in order to actually vote. And you can't abstain from votes, unfortunately, on this commission, according to our bylaws. So again, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and are there any opposed? Amazing. Okay, so that is the first amendment that we suggested and implemented. Has anyone read through the bylaws or have any other thoughts on how they read or where there could be changes made?
I read through the bylaws, but I did not read through them with the lens of making changes.
Okay.
So I would definitely like to look at and see if we can read through them
Okay. Cool.
with that lens to improve.
Okay, so we have our city staff liaison sending them to you all. Thank you. And I apologize. I thought that wasn't given to you at appointment. So thank you for vocalizing that you didn't receive those yet. So then I think the bylaws discussion could definitely be something implemented into like one of the subcommittees that we're going to be discussing in the future. But I also, again, I do think that outside of this one that we just made, if people can read them and think through like areas of strengths or areas of opportunity to be different for like more fruitful discussion or voting or engagement, like I would really appreciate looking at them through that lens. And then maybe we can have a conversation about that at the next commission meeting.
I agree. I think it should be an agenda item at the next.
Okay, cool. Do other people agree to that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I have agreements of that. So we'll go ahead and just move on from that subject item, but also Lori, do you mind making sure
What was the title of the agenda item?
The Human Relations Commission bylaws, ensuring that that is on next agenda. Yes, thank you so much. All right. Hello. So now we will move into a discussion on working subcommittees. This is available online in the agenda packet. It is also available in the materials, I believe, up front. So this was a draft document for suggested working committees for the Human Relations Commission for us to discuss today. Last meeting, we talked about wanting to have working committees and how that was a power that we were able to have to be able to have more work done outside of these 2-hour meetings once or twice, sometimes a month. And so these were the ones that I kind of thought through as a draft just to be able to start a discussion somewhere. If people want to add to it, edit it, or think through some things differently, that is obviously a discussion that we invite. So I'm going to go ahead, I think, and just like review them at a time. Yes, that's actually in the agenda packet. It should be. Yes. Perfect. Amazing. Okay. So the first one that's drafted as a suggestion is policy and systems change subcommittee, which the focus suggested as of now is addressing and influencing really fast, actually, before I continue, these subcommittees were taken into consideration or drafted with the scope and the purpose of the commission, which is listed in chapter 58 of our city charter. They were drafted with those in mind. Kind of thinking through the areas of opportunity and work that the Human Relations Commission has as a goal and purpose, and how we could create working subcommittees to try and fit those goals and purposes that will allow them to work independently on those. Commissioners are welcome to join those, encouraged actually to join those subcommittees. And then following that, those people who were on the subcommittees would bring forward their suggestions or proposal to us as the commission body to vote on. Does that make sense as far as the scope of these subcommittees?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Myers?
How many people would be on these commissions? Would it just be whoever volunteers or what?
That's a really great question. I've kind of had my own thoughts around that, but curious to hear what other commissioners have to say on that. So I'll go ahead and just open the floor for that kind of discussion before I give my opinion. Does anyone have any thoughts on like how many people would be? Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I think in general, my thought is that there could be as many as on the subcommittees as people are willing to put in the work and show up and invest in. I do recognize that the more subcommittees we have, the more work there is, and we are limited by, in some ways, by what we're able to do along those lines. So those are my thoughts, not necessarily a number as much as it is as keeping each subcommittee open for whoever would like to participate and serve.
Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead, Commissioner
I
Harper.
was gonna say, yeah, when we can find out what scope we're in, I think that'll give an idea of like how many people will be needed for whatever is committee that we actually choose. So I think when we actually have something, then it'll be a good time to decide. But I think putting a number on it now before we actually know what committee we're gonna be doing, we might want to just wait.
Thank you, Commissioner Doulos.
I don't think a number really matters, as long as it's maybe an odd number for voting sake for that subcommittee. But I think if they're just bringing it to us, even if there's 3 people, it should be.
And this would actually be a point of inquiry for maybe City Attorney Barr, Lori. Would the subcommittees be subject to the Open Meetings Act? Would they be allowed to discuss things, outside of these, city chambers? Okay,
For that you would meet, you would discuss it, but everything you discuss, you bring back and you make no decisions. So even with 3, it wouldn't matter, they're voting. Whatever you would go and find, you would bring it back and everyone would vote.
okay, great. Councilmember King.
I would just add that on city council, when we have subcommittees, we normally pick one person from each ward. Again, that's not on every subcommittee, but most of them, that is the order we try to do it.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to add my thoughts too now. I definitely echo the sentiment of Commissioner Jackson, Harper and Doulos with believing that there's so much work to be done in this community, and rather restricting the people who are excited or eager or willing to help, kind of allowing that opportunity to people, because some of this might be an opportunity to have access to being involved more, right? Who can't necessarily commit to a commissioner role to meet regularly or however often. And it gives people an opportunity to still be engaged in some capacity. And I think, to be honest, I'm not sure if we'll have a lot of people jumping up and down excited to do some city work, and that we may have to do some invitations to people is the more of the way I see it happening. But I also agree that I don't think we maybe need to cap attendance or the number of people willing to support or help out these subcommittees, but more so creating some kind of structure still that we can keep track of who's on the subcommittees, where we have a roster still, but allowing that attendance to be. And I think we can also discuss that maybe in the future if we're noticing a lot of people wanting to help and then it's too many where we can't organize. However, I think that maybe we could approach that conversation if that were to happen. But Commissioner Myers.
I just want to second what Commissioner Doulos said about like at least 3 people. And I would also like to say that, what you said before about not limiting access to people. I think it's a good idea. I think all we should do really is just say, hey, maybe we should say at least 3 people and 1 commissioner. And if more people want to join, the more the merrier. If you know what I mean.
Yes, sorry, I was like, my brain sometimes task switched. Yes, I agree with that. Commissioner Monroe, do you have any thoughts? I don't want to like skip over people, or Commissioner St. John.
I'm just kind of listening at the moment.
Understandable. This is the first one.
A little reading.
Okay, cool. Commissioner St. John, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay. Cool. So I believe we heard from everyone. So then I'll just go ahead and get into the actual proposed subcommittees that we have here. So the first one is the Policy and Systems Change Subcommittee. So this is addressing and influencing local policy, systems, and institutional practices. This subcommittee would encompass advocacy, like policy review, legislative review, and working with HRC to support city staff and council on policy recommendations with a focus on systemic change to combat discrimination and promote equity. Some activities would include like analyzing local and state policies, proposing legislative changes, drafting resolutions, partnering with legal or policy experts, and advising on governance reform. And so like where this kind of has some combined work areas, it's just part of the nature of this commission is anti-discrimination policy advocacy. Our fair housing policy reform would be discussed in here. Local governance accountability for commissioners and council, and data collection for different policy initiatives. So what are people's thoughts on this first proposed subcommittee?
Love it.
Sounds like a good committee.
I second that. Well done.
Everyone is just so positive. We just have such a positive commission here, don't we? Okay, well,
I'm gonna be a bit of a hater here. I think as long as we're doing this, I think it's a little broad in scope. I like it. I think it's a good idea, but I think we should maybe limit it a little bit. And as it just says here, it says analyzing local state policies. I think let's maybe focus on Ypsilanti first and then work our way out. You know what I mean? Other than that, good idea.
well, my first thought to that is we are a home rule state. And so that means that state policies do impact our city and not the other way around. It's top down. And so thinking through how the state's policies are impacting us on a local level and what we can do locally to have more of a bottom up approach is where that's going with. Regarding the scope being broad, do you have suggestions on how you would tighten that?
No, I just wanted to set it out there, that idea out there.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, and I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you. Yes, if there's ever any kind of like, thoughts on what could be different or better, we always encourage like information or insight on that. And so feel free to share that out loud if you do have other thoughts on what could be different. What are other people thinking? I'm not looking at anyone specifically. I'm just looking around, making sure my head's on a swivel.
Reading it, when I first see it, it sounds good. Like I'm sure I could probably think of something maybe in the future, but just first off, it's good. It's policy system change. That's what I see, and it looks good. Yeah.
Commissioner Doulos?
I agree with you. I think maybe that once the subcommittee starts and starts talking about things, maybe then they'll find a more focused purpose. But yes, I love this idea.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. So now we can, I'm guessing, do we vote on all three together or one at a time? What is like the better approach to this? Whatever we want. Okay, we got free reign.
Yeah,
Commissioner,
only thing I would think is just like, read that and then you gotta raise feedback and then you got the two others, like, are you gonna have enough people? That would be my only thoughts. So like, I don't know if it's like, are we gonna do one and focus picking one? Or are we gonna do all three and then coming with substitutes for all three all the time? But it's up to you. That's up to us.
yeah, I definitely, Commissioner Myers, actually, your hand was raised, so I'll let you go ahead and say something.
I just want to say that I think we should just separate the votes out for each individual committee. Not because I disagree with them, just better. You know what I mean?
Okay.
An opportunity for more feedback from the commission.
Okay. I also think that if we're voting one at a time, may be an opportunity to also add some people that we know who are interested or would be interested, to at least invite them. And if they decide to not join, they obviously don't have to, but we could at least discuss ways to start having people on these subcommittees as we vote on them. But first, let's go ahead and just like approve this subcommittee as like a subcommittee. So do I have a motion to have the Policy and Systems Change Subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission created?
Motion.
A motion by Commissioner Harper. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Jackson. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving into people who we think would be great inclusions of these committees. Are there anyone or any people that we can think of? Obviously, like we can add people. We can add people next time as well. So it's not. Do we actually need to talk about how we want to add people? Like, do we need to vote or do people just show up? Is that something that we have to discuss and decide on?
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe each commissioner could invite anyone they would think would be part of it. And then once you guys have an actual list, maybe get the list and send out an invitation and whoever shows up for it, maybe.
Okay, I like that idea a lot. So how about instead of the attendance also being included, we just go ahead and vote on the commission or the subcommittees, and then people can send in their suggestions to you, Lori, or would it be me? Okay, great. So Commissioner Myers was first and then Commissioner Jackson.
I just want to say that I think if we're gonna make another committee or anything like that, I think we should make sure that goes before HRC first before we like start creating stuff. I don't like, you know what I mean?
Right, so making sure that we're kind of,
Voting on each individual member to be appointed. So if we're gonna have this subcommittee, I think instead of being, we should work on, hey, each commissioner can invite people to this commission. And then as a whole commission, we all vote together to say, we're gonna appoint this person, this person, this person, instead of just kind of running it by ear. You know what I mean?
okay. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, I was just thinking that I may need, on a personal level, I may need some time to decide what subcommittee I would like to maybe participate in. And so, and there may be others here that may feel the same. But
Okay, Commissioner Doulos and then Commissioner Harper.
I'd like to say, I don't think that every person on the subcommittee should be voted on, because we weren't voted on to join this. You know, we volunteered. I think if you want to join a subcommittee and I don't know them as a person, I don't know how I would. Is that what you're saying, the general public? Or are you saying
No, I'm
us on
saying
it?
that as HRC, we should like vote on who's on our subcommittee. You know what I mean?
Which commissioner is on each subcommittee or every member? in
No,
the
I-
subcommittee?
Maybe I should explain this better. What I think is, if we're gonna set up a committee, we can, if we're gonna choose who's the way we should choose who's on each commission on each subcommittee should be your general vote through HRC. You know what I mean? So if we're gonna make a policy and system change subcommittee, we shouldn't just say if you show up or if a commissioner on HRC invites you to do it, then you should be able to do it. I think what we should do is, hey, if you want to do, hey, as HRC, we're putting out a general, hey, we're creating subcommittees. If you want to do it, come show up to a meeting. Maybe it's October 31st. I don't know. I'm making up stuff. And then as a whole HRC committee, then we say, oh, okay, you want to be on, you want to be on. So we'll all vote together. Hey, I want you to be on my, let's say,
I get it. I get it. I like to go on record saying I don't want that. I definitely don't want to vote on someone by like their first appearance or their resume that they put out to me if they should have a voice in their community. I think that if they're invited and if they want to join a subcommittee, that all voices should be welcome and not stifled by us.
Commissioner Harper, and then I'm gonna say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking, maybe we should wait and think about how we want to structure it. I see the point. Maybe you're looking for, I don't know if you are now, but when you're talking, I'm thinking maybe you're thinking someone might have some expertise in some areas that might be good to choose. But also at the same time, what you're saying is we want people that are really in it to go ahead and, just never know, like people that are living these experiences that might not have, a job or degree. It might just not look good, but have a real experience on how to go ahead and make some impact. So I think just kind of waiting to, make a move on those decisions is important.
Commissioner Monroe.
I agree with that because well, for me, you don't know me. So I've got a lot of experience that nobody would know. I think volunteering might be.
Yes, Commissioner Harper.
Sorry. And then also, we don't know how many people are really going to be eager to jump in. So I think that's another thing we have to think about. So yeah, just looking at all those factors.
I think that actually kind of goes back into the initial conversation around like wanting to have an attendance cap, right? And our conversation was centered on like people are probably not going to be jumping up and down excited to maybe join this, where we're having to turn down a lot of people. And so to kind of keep in spirit with that, it makes sense to just allow folks who are interested to join. I do want to make a correction. I know that earlier in this meeting, we mentioned that the committees are not subject to the same rules of this commission, but I do want to make a point of clarity with Article 7, Section 3. It says that the same principle of these bylaws for the commission also apply to all committees of the commission, including but not limited to making all meetings open to the public and keeping a record of all proceedings. So maybe that's a possible bylaw amendment we want to discuss at the next meeting of allowing more freedom and flexibility for those subcommittees, but allowing them still to know that there's no decisions to be made. It's just things to bring forward for our commission to make those final decisions. Just wanted to note that as a point of clarity. So I'm gonna suggest then, after we kind of discuss some more of these subcommittees, a different next step. But I'm gonna go ahead and get through the rest of these subcommittees just to make sure that we're following along the agenda. So the next one, do I have a volunteer who wants to read number 2? So I don't have to hear myself talk. Commissioner Jackson.
Community Engagement and Education Subcommittee will focus building relationships within community, educating the public and promoting awareness of key issues related to human rights and equality. This subcommittee would foster collaboration across diverse groups, organizations, public forums, and lead educational initiatives on relevant topics, activities, organizing events, public forums, workshops, educational programs, and facilitating dialogue among marginalized communities and government bodies. Combined work areas, community outreach, public education, event planning, public safety education, media, and communication campaigns.
So yes, I would like to open the discussion for this, just some clarity and context. The Ypsilanti Police Advisory Commission did form a subcommittee to discuss the upcoming community forum series that we have all voted to host and conduct. And this subcommittee would be tasked initially for the logistical planning of that community forum series. So what are people's thoughts on this subcommittee?
Sounds good.
I think it's incredibly important to get, I don't know, I think it's a really good subcommittee.
Commissioner Harper, did you have your hand up?
Also just thinking, yeah, as far as people, just structuring how many people are gonna have to be able to go ahead and really help with that. But that's down the line. I'm just thinking at the time. But yeah, everything else sounds good.
Commissioner St. John and then Commissioner Jackson.
So my only question for this is making sure that by organizing events and creating workshops and all this stuff that the activities are under, like who's budgeting and funding that? Because I'm not going to personally ask my community to fund things.
Thank you for uplifting that. That is actually a situation that had recently occurred when we did ask for money from council, because in the city charter, it says that we shall get money appropriated from city council. But that there was some confusion that happened where shall maybe is may, but and there was some voting that happened that there was a decision to give us some money allocated. Councilmember King, do you remember what that amount was?
So we came out with a document that was already in place.
Okay.
And I think it was any amount over 500. Is that what it was? 400? Any amount over 400 has to come to council for approval.
Okay. But I agree that the funding or budgeting aspects would need to be included in this, of like for them, the people of the subcommittee to kind of think through and bring that for us to provide feedback, input before we bring it to council for them to approve it, should it be over $400.
I think it was my understanding as well that it actually goes to the city manager.
Okay. Not city council. Okay.
So it could be quicker, perhaps.
After the 400.
Well, under 400.
Oh, okay.
So under 400 goes to city council.
No, I think it goes to city manager.
Over 400 goes to city council, under 400 goes to the city
That's
manager.
what I thought.
Okay.
And one more thing that I wanted to bring the attention, the media and communications campaign. Just be mindful that social media and communicating campaigns can often create negativity instead of positivity. And so if we're actually like really trying to get somebody to use media and communications, then I would definitely want to vote on people that have the same kind of sense of, you know, not harm individuals or not say anything against, you know, what our bylaws are and everything like that. So I would just want to be mindful of who's doing that and to make sure that it is ran by us to approve anything that goes on social media.
We actually don't even have a social media account as this commission, so that won't even be an issue. But I do think that goes back to, we will have the decision-making abilities, and these subcommittees are just working subcommittees that are helping us kind of optimize the capacity of our commission without being able to crank all of that out in a 2-hour meeting. And again, like, I agree with that. And a lot of the media is also like press releases, like, for example, with this upcoming community forum series, being able to reach out to different entities to be able to let them know what's coming up and how they can be involved. So those conversations or those media campaigns would fall under that for us to decide. Commissioner Jackson, I know your hand was up. Thank you.
One of the things too is that in thinking about these programs and opportunities to fulfill the subcommittee, you know, in regards to the cost of anything, I think it was already mentioned, we can put together a proposal. So just go straight to, again, I'm kind of repeating the same thing. It's over $400. It would go straight to the council. And they make the decision.
500, but regard.
Right, or I'm sorry,
500.
it could be 500. And so I think, you know, if we have a good idea coming from these subcommittees and we're able to make a proposal to city council, that's the hope, that there would be funding and support to be able to perform these activities and duties.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I just want to, I think I have a note in my mind of anything under $251. The commission, I believe, just had a free reign to spend. I want to say it came from Attorney Barr, but it might have come from my city council meeting. I'm not certain of this. I think it would probably be good just to ask, send an email to Attorney Barr if you could do that, and just say, hey, what's the limit for that? And then a couple of notes here on media outreach campaigns. So the city has a bunch of lamps, also has a library and such. Is it possible we could use city printers and such, hey, and then through, you know, I know now it's, if you put a poster up, it's considered graffiti. But if we could do, hey, you know, we're with the city, we're gonna put our poster on all of our city lamps and say, hey, please come to this meeting, and not have it removed or graffiti. And then also, I know that Ypsi, I believe, has Ypsilanti, the city, does have some social media accounts. On, I was thinking specifically Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And there's also, so we could work through there, maybe get permission from the city manager to use those social media accounts to spread the message. And also, I would like to note that there is specifically on Facebook, there's a community called Ypsilanti Area Discussion and Ypsilanti Area Discussion Unfiltered, and it's just, you know, discussion about Ypsi. I think we could use those two platforms as contact the administrator to say, hey, we're with HRC, we're with the city, can you please pin this to the top of your board? Hey, Ypsilanti HRC is having these meetings.
Thank you. Yes, the city does have their own social media accounts, but as a commission, we don't. But we did the subcommittee or the working committee with YPAC, and a few members of us, of our commission, under quorum, did discuss like different options potentially. And one of them was utilizing the city's Facebook social media account. So just to echo that's a good idea. And then Commissioner Jackson, you had your hand up. I apologize.
I just want to say, I really like this subcommittee. I think it's important. That's all I want to say is that I appreciate the thoughtfulness in constructing this subcommittee.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate people's thoughts on that. Councilmember King, thank you.
I just want to read from the document that I did just pull up. So it is $500 and the clerk or city administration would approve that. Anything over 500 will go to council. I will forward this information to Kat.
Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Layton, sorry.
Chair Layton, thank you. I appreciate that, Councilmember King, and I can send that out to folks. Was there another hand? Just making sure my head's on a swivel. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve this subcommittee?
Motion.
A motion by Mr. Harper, Commissioner Harper, and an eager second from Commissioner Myers. Do I have all in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We have now 2 subcommittees, everyone. And now we are going into the third. Do I have someone who would like to read this one out loud?
Yes, Equity and Access Subcommittee. The focus is ensuring marginalized communities have equitable access to resources, services, and opportunities. This subcommittee would address barriers faced by historically underserved groups, advocate for expanded access to housing, mental health services, employment opportunities, and more. The activities would be assessing gaps in access, working with service providers, conducting outreach to underserved communities, and advocating for equitable distribution of resources. The combined work areas would be economic equity, mental health and wellness, crisis response, and public safety access, also including equal opportunity and anti-bias initiatives.
Thank you. And now we can have a discussion on this.
I want to be on this committee.
Well, we have someone who's excited to be on this, should it pass. Hopeful it does. Do I have anyone who would like to start the discussion on the commission? All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I don't have much to say other than another great subcommittee. Very practical. And yes, I really appreciate the intentionality of really addressing those barriers and making sure that we're able to find solutions to tear those barriers down for our community members. So I'm very excited about this group as well. So the subcommittee as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to add to that part of discussion? Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, it's just a single note here. It says marginalized communities would have equitable access. I just wanted to address the word equitable as opposed to equal. I'm not entirely certain. I'm not. But I just want to ask about like what's the difference between that and why we would choose one over the other. Just in general note.
Yeah, I was about to just pull up a Merriam-Webster dictionary just to maybe get that point across clearly and concisely. But yeah, so essentially, if there's anyone who would like to maybe approach that question first before I do, I'm happy to. So equality is assuming that everybody is operating from the same starting point. And so helping them be like equal is assuming that, and versus equity is recognizing the shortcomings that some people have, albeit from their zip code, the race they were born, the sexuality they have, etc. And it's ensuring that people are given the opportunity to have that same playing field that equality doesn't necessarily get to. And there's a really great image. If you were to Google equality versus equity, there's a really great image that shows a picture of kids trying to look above a fence. inequality is giving them all the same box square and having them all stand, but you have kids who are taller and lower and they still have the same height difference with the same box versus allowing bigger boxes for the smaller kids or smaller boxes for the taller kids to be able to create a more equitable height view, if that makes sense, as a visual demonstration. I'm gonna say, Commissioner Harper, did you have
I keep on
something?
Scratching my head.
I think you're raising your
Yeah,
hand
no.
subconsciously, actually.
I got something to say.
But yeah, no, this is great. I think at some point, you know, I want to think also about even more work areas that we can go ahead and participate in. So that's all.
Yes, I agree to that. And these are just starting points, right? That were based on like grouping some purposes and together to create like kind of these like macro, policy systems thoughts and more micro, like direct experience, one-on-one individual response. So Commissioner Jackson, I apologize.
No, sorry. I think as well, just in regards to the equitable side of things, uh, recognizing that not everybody as well has the same level of education for a number of different reasons or exposure to um, different ideas or thoughts based upon culture. Or there's so many different dynamics that make up the diversity that each and every one of us embody, and being able to make exceptions for that. I remember going and helping some of my friends that were unhoused, and a lot of the barriers weren't necessarily that there weren't opportunities within our community, but it was the mindsets of the individuals that were needing that help. They needed a certain type of help, somebody to walk with them through that process. Because for them, certain dynamics were overwhelming, even in the areas of just filling out forms or knowing where to go. And so there's a whole bunch of people out in our community right now. We have the resources, but but they're not accessing them because of the way that we're not necessarily being intentional to go to them. And there's sometimes a general sense of, well, if it's here, they'll come to us. But there's been services within our community that's been here for years that many people have not been able to take advantage of simply because the approach has not been equitable. So not to.
No, I really, really appreciate you saying that and to uplift, like as a social worker, I can definitely attest to that working in social services for 10 years, where like that was my role, was to connect people to these services that existed, but there was a lack of access to these opportunities, not that they didn't exist, right? Because Washtenaw County, we are very resource rich and resource dense community. We have a lot of different nonprofits, organizations, people trying to get involved and do the work. But then we also have people who are in need of those services, but they don't necessarily know where to access them or how to get involved in them. And then also a lot of that burden of figuring that out is placed on them when they're also trying to make ends meet, survive, they're unhoused, they're living in tents, they're trying to figure out where they're going to sleep next. Like there's a lot of different issues, trauma, right? So I do appreciate that sentiment. I know Commissioner Myers, you initially asked that question. Just want to bring it back to you because I know you raised your hand again and I didn't want it to go on lost.
Just like a note here. Would this be like helping people realize and use nonprofits, or would this be organizing like more what's the word I'm looking for? More like nonprofits, you know what I mean? Like, are we gonna say, hey, this is the HRC, maybe a newsletter, and say, if you are struggling in XYZ, here are different organizations. Is that what we're gonna do?
Commissioner Jackson, sure.
Yeah, I think part of us becoming more practical in making sure that everybody is, in a sense, has access to them is being able to do the research to figure out what are those barriers, what are those things that's prohibiting people from getting the resources that they so desperately need. And there's a host of different issues for different people, and being able to do our due diligence to find out and discover. And it may be something as simple as you know, oh, instead of just putting this online someplace, we should actually go into have somebody go into the community, building relationship with these individuals and walking with them through that journey and through that process. That may be an example, but there may be other examples along those lines that through doing our research, we can find more equitable approaches in making sure that each and every one of our community members have access to the resources that are readily available for all of our community members. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to add to that, like working in the criminal legal system for a long time, like people are handed outdated resources. I'm sure we can, no, right? Exactly. It's,
Really?
and so also there's like 1,000 different resource guides out there that have different information across each resource guide, believe it or not. And so what I see this subcommittee doing is kind of in line with maybe helping those different organizations streamline efforts. So we're not duplicating processes, we're not duplicating efforts. Because that is what a big issue in our community is that we're all working very siloed and very hard, I'll add. Like we're all working really hard, siloed. But if we can maybe like but if we can like maybe try to bridge these barriers or these gaps together as a body, right? Like as a commission, where we're not necessarily creating nonprofits. I don't think that's in our scope at all. That is something City Attorney Barr would definitely argue against that. And I don't really want that to be our responsibility either. But what I do see is being able to just help coordinate these efforts as a city commission, and whatever this subcommittee kind of feels and thinks they can get creative with, again, leaving that up to them. Commissioner Doulos.
I like the way your brain works. You're an action item kind of person. And I wanted to bring it back to the scope of our commission where we're not really an action item commission. Our actions that we can do are collecting data and then bringing data to city council to inform them, to, you know, bring our issues up that way. But for us, a lot of what I think we want to do in these things is just like a lot of listening and a lot of hearing. And then so we can put forth recommendations on what council can do and like bigger picture issues. But like, I love the way you're like, oh, here's the issues, you know, like, let's give them something. And just kind of bringing it back, because I'm learning that too, you know, but what the scope of our commission is, we're data collection. So I think you really answered that beautifully with what we need to do is listen and see where the issues are so we can figure out
And yeah,
recommendations, help in the future.
and work together on developing those thoughts and identifying those gaps. And what recommendations look like are resolutions oftentimes to bring forward. And there was some, I think at the last city council meeting, there was a resolution that went from the Sustainability Commission to city council to request funding with the thought that city staff would write the resolution, but I think the staff thought the commission would write the resolution. So I've just been kind of writing the resolutions for us to be able to look at it together, to kind of go around that, to be able to visually see language together as a body, which is why we have this kind of written out here today. But like, those are what recommendations look like, is like resolutions to the council to be able to put forth different ideas, concepts, thoughts, and to think differently of how we can enhance mutual understanding and decrease discrimination in our community. But thank you for posing that question. Are there any other thoughts on this besides excitement to join? And if there is no other thoughts on it, then I'm happy to hear a motion.
Motion for Equity and Access Subcommittee
To approve?
to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the Access and Equity Subcommittee and by Commissioner St. John, and I have a second by Commissioner Jackson. And so is all in favor?
Aye.
All right, do we have any opposed? All right, hearing none, we have gone and created and established our first 3 subcommittees. Wait, please don't be very, okay. Yay, Lori, yes, amazing.
And so I had asked Councilmember about saying about the subcommittees for council. They are not outside people. The subcommittees are the council members on it. I'm not sure if you would be allowed to get outside people.
Our bylaws do say that citizens or people are allowed to be on the subcommittees still, so that's in our bylaws at least.
Yeah, but yeah. So I just wanted like visually, it's like, remember when you were in school and you'd have a school project and they put you in a group and the group goes and makes the project and then one or all of them bring it back for discussion. I do agree with you guys that this is really going to help you be able to go out, get the stuff, but also if the subcommittee and if it's the commissioners, you'd be able to email me a zillion times that we could get a lot of stuff done that would never come here. And then you'd get the final stuff to be able to bring here, as in having something for the social media, whatever that is, flyers or whatever. And I would just say that like that. And so I think you would get a lot more done, but I'm just not sure if you're allowed to have people that wasn't assigned to be in the subcommittees. I really don't know.
Before you say something, Commissioner Myers, just to bring to your point, Lori, I was going to suggest that the next thing we could do as a next step is maybe just send names to me, and then we can confirm by that time if that is allowed or not allowed, and then move forward as needed with that. And before I make that proposal, Commissioner Myers.
Just no, are the rules saying that we can only have commissioners on it, or are we saying we can have other members of the public, but only the commissioners can vote in these committees? You understand what I'm asking?
Yep.
Yeah, I just want a little quick clarification on that. Do we know?
I don't have that answer. I do know that no subcommittee people, if they were the public, would be able to vote because they don't have any power to vote. Only the members would have the power to vote.
Laura, you just said that we weren't voting in subcommittees when I mentioned voting.
Oh, that is true. They're more of working, talking, not decision making.
Right, they're not, right. I'm not sure if I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Voting, the voting part. They wouldn't be voting. Okay.
No. It's just like I was saying, like you go do the project, you're going to be finding stuff. You're going to be, maybe contacting me, asking a question from Attorney Barr or the city manager, asking about the budgeting. And then when you get all that back, instead of coming here and talking and then waiting to get that done, you'd be able to bring it back and go, okay, this is what we found out, like that. And then, but it would be a commissioner bringing it back, is my understanding, or
Okay.
commissioners. if
That
they
makes
were
sense to me
successful.
logistically to kind of spare staff
like
getting a lot of
us.
emails as well.
I think it's my understanding like council that when people will residents will contact the council member and say, hey, I have this discussion. I'm wondering about this. And then the council member brings it forward if they want to discuss it or ask like that. And then the same thing I would think for the subcommittees.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
That,
Have our bylaws open where we can read,
um,
so we can kind of end if we can or can't.
yes. So the committees are under Article 7. And Section 1 specifies the commission or chair may establish and appoint ad hoc committees for special purposes or issues as deemed necessary. Less than a quorum may serve on an ad hoc committee at any given time. Section 2, all committees are subservient to the commission and report their recommendations to the commission for review and action. The commission can overrule any action of any committee. And Section 3 is the same principles of these bylaws, which I already read earlier. And that's it for that article. So nothing explicitly says no other people outside of commissioners can attend. And the language almost reads to me as in there would be other people on it. Because then it wouldn't really make sense to have working committees if we or only people on it. We would just have that meeting together, maybe. So, but again, I think maybe the takeaway here is giving ourselves until the end of the month, maybe, to send names over to me, and then clarifying that with city staff or Attorney Barr to ensure that that is indeed the way that the bylaws are interpreted. So how do folks feel about sending your names, including yourself, if you're interested on one of the subcommittees, to me via email by September 30th? How do folks feel about that? Commissioner
Yeah.
Myers?
That seems a little, I guess, quick almost. If we want people to be serving on these commissions, I don't think it'd be wise to immediately just say, all right, you got a week or you got 10 days to just get it on. I don't think there'd be a lot of I don't think it would allow a lot of community members to really like learn and engage in these things. You know what I mean?
Commissioner Doulos, do you want to respond?
I don't think they mean names of the public that we want to join. I thought it was names of.
I did mean both, like yourself and others, but we also talked about that it wasn't going to be, a voted process right now. And so like, if there's people that you identify after September 30th, then I think those names could be considered as well. It's just like to get the process started.
I don't think it should be capped by a time of community engagement, 100%. But if it's just us committing to it, then I'm good with that time. If it's which commissioners want to go, and then from there on, we seek out public.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, we can recruit people, and then if we need to, after the 30th, we can still continue to recruit people.
I actually do think that this could be a discussion, because when I'm thinking about it, if we're having like, just as a clinician, when we think about group therapy, we have like the storming, norming, forming phases, right? And if you try to have someone start group therapy in the middle of someone already doing group therapy, it can throw the dynamic off of the group. So I'm wondering if we want to have a window of a period that allows people to be added to it, and then a closing date that we are no longer adding people to it. I don't think the September 30th would be that closing date. I think that is too soon, and I agree with that. But maybe we could have like a window period where we're accepting like a rolling application basis until XYZ date, to ensure that there's not this like repeating of context happening each time with new members, at least for like maybe a year, or when the commission is, the chair is elected or the vice chair is elected, maybe that could be where we have the rolling application start again, just as an idea. But Commissioner St. John?
Do you have an idea of when our next HRC meeting is?
Yes, our next HRC meeting is October 17th at 6 p.m.
So I would say possibly maybe like a week before our meeting, have it due.
Okay, so for just like some preliminary people we want to add, including ourselves.
And then this way it's still making sure we get it on the agenda if needed.
Then let's go ahead and propose agenda items are due to Lori by 1 o'clock the Friday beforehand. So rather than being the Friday, just maybe we could have Friday morning would be the deadline to be sending things. That way we can make sure it's sent over to Lori in time for Friday is October 11th. So I know that could be a time for us to add folks for this like first round. Do people feel a certain way or have any thoughts around having like maybe a December date as like a cutoff? Or Commissioner Meyer's hand was up, and then, okay, Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, I think I have a different perspective in regards to being able to keep it open, you know, because sometimes people are part of it and then they, for life or challenges, maybe they may leave, and maybe others may want to join. And I think having kind of in these our subcommittees as in a way, kind of these open forums where people that are excited to get involved, we could have a process in which we can mitigate some of the confusion that comes when people join a team or a project midway by making sure they either read all the notes, you know, and we catch them up to speed, you know, where we're at, so they know. And then maybe, I don't know, but I was just thinking that it would be good I like the idea of having these open and continuing to solicit community participation. I personally believe that having as many voices heard from a diversity of group of people is really significant and important, and to keep that open. And I know that is a bit different in the context of how some structures have been, but I would be interested in having further discussions about how we could continue to keep our subcommittees open, because my guess is that these are issues, each one of these subcommittees are addressing issues that are relevant now, but those issues change, with each season, it seems like. And so the ability to adjust and accommodate that reality, I think, would be important. Yeah, just continue. So my guess that these would be continual working subcommittees for the duration of however long we deem that these are important subcommittees to have for the HRC.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Commissioner Myers.
I lost my train of thought, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Commissioner Harper.
I guess I didn't have too much to say. Daniel kind of said what I was thinking. I think along the way, as we're going through the process, it's important to be able to have some flexibility there, because we're going to be learning as we go and deciding along the way, like, hey, what's important, what we need to fix. So though I agree with everything you just said.
Thank you. So I think what I'm hearing is maybe some thoughts or consensus around having October 11th, like 9 a.m. still being the time for people to send in their suggestions, including, public names, and also your name, should you be interested in one of them, to me, for us to have that sent to Lori. And then also we can discuss, maybe I appreciate being flexible during this like figuring it out process, because we maybe will develop an understanding of how to better structure the application process or participation process, et cetera. So I think we can definitely wait to have that conversation and just keep the names open to be sending until October 11th for now. Commissioner Myers?
I think you said earlier about these committees that we shouldn't be too soon to say, hey, we need to have X amount of members on it. And you also said that people probably won't be jumping up and down. So I'd like just to agree with all of you in saying that, yeah, we probably shouldn't just say, oh, we're going to limit to 10 people, because who knows, only 2 people might show up. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think that's a good way to end the working committee's discussion and kind of move on swiftly with 35 minutes left of this meeting to the fair housing ordinance discussion. I just want to just start this discussion off by again reiterating the frustration that we have as a commission had experienced when what we had intended to be kind of portrayed in language wasn't quite captured. And now a lot of frustration and like confusing feelings around it, which is very understandable. And just like to make point again, I think I made this at the last commission meeting, but that when I read the ordinance language again, after I believe staff and attorney wrote it for the council, we had passed 3 ordinance amendments at that time. Whereas I was able to write, for us to approve 2 of them, and we asked staff to assist us with this one in particular, because it was going to be adding a chapter into the city code. And since we're not, legal experts, really like leaning on the expertise of our city attorney to know like how we would structure and frame that. And in the ordinance amendment, there were a lot of blanks needing to be included. And that I think kind of led to this very like confusing aspect where it looks like upon first glance, we're saying like you cannot do background checks. And then it kind of keeps going on into the ordinance saying, you can do background checks, but it's after a certain point, really trying to highlight that like order of operations process. I appreciate that, Commissioner Harper. I did email you, Lori, the Nation Outside presentation, so that should be in your inbox to put on the website. But yes, the way we saw this going, because this is like a statewide national movement for fair housing, fair chance housing, is that there would be an initial screening where that housing provider would do a rental application with their standard criteria. Then there would be this conditional offer. So a relationship has been built, an application has been processed, and they're able to conditionally offer this housing unit to this individual. And from there, the housing provider, should they want to, would be able to do a background check. And from there, if they want to deny that individual after that background check, they would need to provide a a written letter of some sort. I can't remember the exact language right now that kind of details that reasoning to that as it relates to, the different considering factors. We also received a letter from the Fair Housing Center that kind of detailed the more logistical state, federal, like regulations that would be impacted or that are involved in this. And it was indicated that people who are charged with distributing or, creating methamphetamines, the people who have those charges or conviction histories, they would not be applicable in this process because that is a federal law. And the same thing can be said for, I believe there was another one I mentioned. Does anyone remember at the top of their head? That's okay. There was another one mentioned for, I believe it's like criminal sexual conduct. So people who are on the lifetime sex offender registry, they're also included. Those are included in the presentation, and that's some of the language that needs to be fleshed out more to address these concerns. And so I put this on the agenda because I wanted just to move this item to our newly formed policy and systems change subcommittee, because I think that is where a lot of that language can be fleshed out and really worked through. And being able to make sure that the spirit of the ordinance is really captured and fulfilled. And I want to bring up some things that were mentioned in public comment as it relates to this. And yes, there are vacant city properties. I believe we've actually asked at one commission meeting how those could be better utilized, and we didn't really get far in that discussion. But that is something that is absolutely a consideration and should be optimized and utilized by the city as it relates to that's their job in serving the community. Housing first models are show that people who have a place that they can live that's stable and secure and safe, it gives them the opportunity to be more involved in job opportunities, substance use disorder treatment or engagement, mental health treatment. But if you're wondering where you're going to sleep at night every night, that is something that's really hard to prioritize. And also, if you're someone who is unhoused, there's constant perceived threats around you always. And as someone who's worked with people who are unhoused, something that I've heard before is some people use drugs like stimulants to stay up at night to ensure they're not robbed at night. And so those are just factors that are really impacting people on a day-to-day basis, where this ordinance, if passed by council, would really allow for people the opportunity to get housing at a more equitable process rather than equal. Because as of right now, there are a lot of people on parole still who are returning to the community on probation even who don't have that equal or accessible opportunity to get housing. And I don't know if Commissioner St. John, you want to speak to that as someone who works with the reentry nonprofit organization, like any empirical things you've observed. Just wanted to open that up as an opportunity.
Housing is definitely, for one, it's a basic human right. And it is one of the biggest things that I noticed in Washtenaw County is the lack of or the overpricing rent, which is absolutely ridiculous, just in my opinion. So yes, housing is one of the biggest things. I work at a Brighter Way. We are a nonprofit reentry organization, and housing is the biggest need of all the individuals who are justice impacted or formerly incarcerated. So it is definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Myers.
Couple of notes here. So you said earlier about how certain offenses like aren't captured within this law, like the arson and the drug users. Could you go into a little further detail as to what law exactly says that, or if there isn't necessarily one, could we include that in our law, saying, hey, we have exceptions for rapists and such?
Yeah, absolutely. I do just want to just make a point to be mindful of like how we refer to people in the community, especially being commissioners for the Human Relations Commission. It's okay. I know its language is, new to everyone, and sometimes we don't really know until we know. So I'm not offended in any way, but just being mindful of just using person-centered language as it relates, because people who often have substance use disorders, they're people and not drug users or abusers specifically as well. But I am trying to find that in my notes section because I would love to share that. And if I am unable to find it in my notes in this moment while also multitasking and talking out loud, I'm happy to send that in an email because I believe we discussed that before you were on the commission. Exactly what the Fair Housing Center said would still be protected by federal and state laws, where this law would not impact that specifically. I know that actually, I believe you spoke at a July council meeting in opposition of the Fair Housing Ordinance. Wondering if you want to share more about your thoughts on that here.
Yeah, sure. So I've spoken to a number of people who both own land and those who are landlords in the city. And they have shared the idea of saying that if we allow certain individuals with criminal background histories, they themselves in the city, this is a couple of notes, but one would be the city would be liable if that person committed another crime and said, if there's a rapist and there's this next to, a kitty daycare, it might be the case that the landlord can say, I can't, you're a protected class under this law, the Open Housing Act or whatever. So you couldn't be able to say, you can't live next to the daycare. And then, hey, it might be someone, let's say closer. Someone might actually get abused, and then, hey, if I'm the school, I might sue, or the parents, I'm going to sue the landlord. Landlord's going to say, I can't do anything about this, and they're going to sue the city. So that's going to cost the city a lot of money. Another note is that there's a fundamental, I think, a disagreement here about rights. And right, traditionally speaking, in legal parlance, is a non-material thing. So I have the right to speak. I have the right to not have people stationed in my house. I have the right to vote. Those are not things that are tangible. I don't have, but on the other hand, you don't have a right to water. You don't have the right to land. You don't have or anything like that. The reason being is that it requires work for those things to exist, right? I don't have a right to a pen because someone had to design the pen and create the pen and pay for the pen and design the plastic for the pen and all that other stuff. The same thing here goes for land or houses, right? You can't have a right to a house because what you're saying is, hey, landlord, you invested in this property. Hey, architect, you made this property. Hey, building inspector, you inspected this property. You guys don't actually have a right to your work being the house, but rather it's a community right. People who did not put effort or time or money into these properties or buildings or things, they now have access to it that actually trumps what you put in. Is that clear?
No, you're allowed to say yes, Commissioner Monroe. You're on the commission. I disagree with you entirely. And just to be very candid, I believe, to echo Commissioner St. John, housing is a human right. And going back to the question you posed about the difference between equality and equity, not everyone has the opportunity to invest in a house. Not everyone has money to invest in that residence, in that property, but it doesn't mean that they're not great tenants. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve homes or access to homes. And again, this ordinance proposal is not telling property owners or housing owners or providers that they are not allowed to do background checks. It is not saying that you are not allowed to deny someone. It nowhere says that, or its intentions is not to say that. And the presentation that will now be available publicly, hopefully, as it should have been in July, says that intentionally, after issuing a conditional offer, a housing provider may choose to run a criminal background check. However, the housing provider can only consider felony convictions within the previous 3 years, which that look back period was not included in the ordinance amendment provided to council, and it needs to be, or whatever we decide that would be. And it says any convictions for arson, human trafficking, and whether the applicant is required to register on the sex offender registry. Those people would be able to be not given a conditional offer. That I found my notes to be able to answer your question. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the guidelines for landlords, tenants, or property owners, housing providers is that you never have to rent to someone on a lifetime sex offender registry, or you never have to rent to someone who has been convicted of manufacturing meth. And there's no explanation needed on those. Like, you can deny people who are on the lifetime sex offender registry and who have been convicted of manufacturing meth. That is from the executive director of the Fair Housing Center and some attorneys who work in housing law. And so anything else, the person has the right to know why they were denied. And that is what we're asking for, is like, you have the ability to deny them, but we can also allow an opportunity for reasons why we're denying people. Because again, if we're tasked to study discrimination in the city, and we now have a tracking system. We didn't when we first started this commission. We had no idea how many people had filed discrimination complaints in the city. And when we asked City Attorney Barr, there wasn't an answer that could be given other than several, because there wasn't a tracking system. And so what this also allows is opportunities for people to know why they're being denied, so they can work differently and get other resources to try a different way, but also hold those accountable who are not following the law accordingly, if that makes sense. Are there others who have thoughts? Commissioner Monroe.
Are those the only, well, I don't understand why you can't do the background check first. Because I just don't understand why that has to wait. And also, are those the only things that you could turn a person down for? I mean, you didn't mention things like murder or torture, or there's just all kinds of things.
So there's, thank you for mentioning that. There's a lot of folks who were charged with murder as juvenile lifers without parole, who are now having the opportunity to be out in the community following a Supreme Court ruling that found that mandatory sentencing for juveniles with life without parole was unconstitutional. And so a lot of people who are being released right now, because there's a lot of appellate work happening to get those people out of prison and resentenced, those people need places to live, and they have a murder conviction, but they've also spent over 25, 30 years in prison doing the rehabilitation work that prison is supposed to offer. But we also know that that's not necessarily the case as well, which is a very different systems conversation that we are not tasked to solve. But I think that presentation that Commissioner Harper just allowed me to look at real quick, that's going to be on the website. There's other ones that we can add, like arson or what was the other one? Human trafficking, that have a look back period. And so I think those are really great discussion items to bring into those working subcommittees to try and like have those conversations in a more robust way, to be able to find language that feels assuring for everyone involved. And so
It's always under an individual basis anyway. I mean, that's just common sense.
It's not.
Well, I've been in real estate over 30 years, and I can tell you it's always an individual.
Well, for me personally, I did 20 years. It took me 3 years to find somebody who would rent to me. And my rent that I'm paying is double what it is in Wayne County. It is not. I spent over $500 being discriminated against, and I served 20 years of my life. 20. I'm on a commission. I work for reentry. I'm a community member. I'm at most, if not all, community events. And I'm still being discriminated against to this day.
Well, that's not my experience.
It's not, but this is my personal.
Yeah.
I managed, I managed a condo complex in North Carolina with 120 units. I had all kinds of people.
That's also North Carolina.
Just to be respectful of the fruitful dialogue, we will try to remain talking one at a time. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to be mindful that we're allowing the mic to be able to pick up what we're saying. And I do think that it's important to respect the lived experience that you bring, Commissioner St. John. 20 years is a very long time to serve in a very restrictive environment that perpetually dehumanizes you. So I appreciate you sharing that on a public forum in a public space. And I can also appreciate the experience you bring, Commissioner Monroe, with like having landlord experience and property ownership. And so I think to echo back, like doing background checks first, it does allow for this discriminatory practice to happen on the landlord, not assuming that all landlords, right, are doing that. Because that is, also like the bad apple versus good apple conversation. And so not assuming that that's happening, this would allow for more of that accountability process. So if you're not a landlord that's doing that, then this added protection shouldn't hurt you, right? It's only going to benefit the people who are having the most discrimination experience happening, which is why we have so many unhoused people right now who have criminal legal system experience, because a lot of them are often not having opportunities to get housing because of those histories. And so they're not able to kind of get that fresh start going because they're worried where they're going to sleep at night. Are they going to have to engage in sex work to be able to find a place to sleep? Like there's a lot of like, yeah.
I'm not for any of that. But are there any statistics on?
There's so many. I'm happy to bring some forward next time. Sorry, my researcher brain just went off because that's what I love to study. And there are so many research facts that like prove the linkage between like housing first models and also like recidivism rates decreasing, and engaging in communities being safer as well. I'm happy to bring that. I know Nation Outside's presentation had some data statistics. So when that's available online, we should loop you in so you can be able to read that for yourself. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, I just want to bring up the purpose of the subcommittee again that we just formed is to go deeper into this because this is a much broader conversation that needs to be had. And I think all of the points that are being made are really important and significant. And I'm grateful that we have just formed a subcommittee to go deeper into that and get more of the community's voices heard and to hash this out so that we can have a more equitable approach to this issue.
Thank you.
I know that we still have a number of different things to
Yes.
cover. I don't want to cut short.
No, I think that
this healthy dialogue, but I also wanted to just point out that, again, the significance of these subcommittees and being able to really look at the data and hash out these issues.
Okay, so how about we then just make a motion, and I'm going to look forward a little bit to item D, definitions for non-discrimination ordinance. That was one of the 3 ordinance amendments I alluded to a moment ago, where we voted to amend the current chapter 58, which is how our body is established. It's also the non-discrimination ordinance, and we voted to approve tightening up a little bit of the language in that was put in 2020. And so I think to clump in order to move forward with limited time available, I think making a motion to talk or to move this fair housing ordinance and the non-discrimination ordinance amendment definition to the policy and systems change subcommittee for further discussion. Yes, please.
If you're going to be are you bringing the statistics you said to the next meeting?
I'm happy to, yes.
Okay, I'm wondering if Commissioner Monroe, if you could also bring statistics from the landlord's perspective.
You mean how many people have been turned down because of?
You said it wasn't happening in your 30 years experience.
Well,
And you,
I haven't seen.
right. So, and then you asked for statistics based on the other side. So I'm asking for statistics on your side. So if you can
I don't know if I
cite your sources.
Well, I'm just talking personally. As a landlord, as a manager of a condo complex.
Okay, I was referring to what you said before Jennifer was talking about her experience about how that doesn't happen.
Well, in my experience, I'm just talking personally.
Okay.
Thank you. I think, well, Commissioner St. John and was speaking from her personal experience. I was speaking from my personal experience as a social worker, and I was asked to bring statistics to like help show what we're saying is valid, which I'm happy to do. I love research and statistics, but I do think that is an interesting concept to maybe bring forward the concerns that could come around it from a landlord's perspective. I think that would be interesting to see if that's something that you would be able to do. Lori or Commissioner Myers? Lori, Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, just a note here, regarding statistics. This is I sent an email to Lori the other day about housing complaints, and this is what she said. I asked her specifically to ask Attorney Barr. Per the city attorney staff, there have been 0 confirmed housing complaints made in the last 21 years. Since the new tracking system, there have been 0 complaints. Additionally, data collected on the tracking system is case file number, blah, blah, blah. I think it's at least interesting that there's been not one in 21 years of any representation of complaints. The second thing is, I think we're mixing up here a little bit.
So quick question, not to interrupt you, but can you come closer to your mic?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't. My apologies. Thank you.
Yes, everyone, please speak into your microphone, just for accessibility for people who are not able to attend in person or view right now.
Thank you for the reminder. Are we saying that every time someone feels as though with this law, are we saying that that landlords have to provide documentation as to why they decline someone for being chosen against? Or are we saying that you have to, and if you don't want to have a certain individual, you have to provide somebody, I don't know who, with the documentation as to why you're making that decision? So we just want to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you're new here, and so you weren't here for that discussion whenever we talked about why there weren't any complaints in over 20 years. And that's because there wasn't a complaint process or like a formal one that really allowed tracking to happen. And that was also like admitted by the city attorney. And so now that we have one, I am interested to see like how many we get. And a lot of that is accessibility. Like, do people know where the tracking form is? I think what your question is will get more fleshed out in the subcommittee, but I know we initially were wanting it to be the offer letter, the conditional offer or the denial letter would be handed to that individual, not necessarily to the city attorney or the city staff. It would be for that individual person. Commissioner St. John?
So just personal experience, being on parole or just getting out of prison, you don't want no cash, especially in the community that you're in. So personally, I didn't file a complaint with any of the cities that turned me down because of the reason of, one, my parole officer to get it and say, well, why are you complaining? You're free, right? Because it happens. And most of the time, the people that are being discriminated against feel like we've voiced our opinion so many times and how we've been treated, nothing changes. So it's fear. So keep in mind, that's a part of it. That's why people don't complain. That's why it's not filed.
So I can't bring anything in because there isn't anything.
What was that? Sorry, I missed it. I'm sorry. What was that?
So I can't bring in any kind of information because there isn't any. Right?
Oh, for statistics?
Yeah.
Okay. On what the impacts are of housing people who have,
Of discriminating against people like that.
So Commissioner Doulos, it sounded like she was saying, bring in statistics saying that people are housed despite.
Correct. That landlords are not discriminating, because I thought that's what you were alleging.
Well, I've never seen it. I mean, unless it was something outrageous.
Okay. I just think it's fair that if you're asking for one side to have statistics, why wouldn't the other side have statistics?
I don't know of any statistics.
Okay, well, you
They
asked
don't
them of her.
exist.
Wait one moment before this gets into a debate. Lori, real quickly, and then I just want to note for the record, it would be Commissioner Harper and then Commissioner Myers and then Commissioner Jackson. But again, we are motioning to see this going into the subcommittees for more discussion. But Lori, please.
Yeah, I just want to say we need to extend the time and just so everybody understands the process. We stop at 8 and the chair would ask if we want to extend and everybody gets to vote on whether to extend and then they would say how long they wanted to extend. But back to the stats, I really like stats too. I would think that each of the subcommittees could have like a section because you want to bring that forward if you're going to bring something to council of saying why you're thinking this way, but that could be something that's inside of the subcommittee to do
Okay.
and bring forth.
Okay.
And not individual, but like
Yes.
true statistics.
Yes, absolutely. From like national research publications. I agree. Those are important. Commissioner Harper. Next.
I realized it was me. You know, I talk sometimes do gestures, and so I always look like I want to get called on. But yeah, no, just to piggyback off what you said, I think that's really important. And then also, of course, like just personal data, you know, face to face when they're meeting people, that's going to be really important because also those people might be able to go ahead and share their stories of experience where we can gain knowledge that we need to know. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so we're saying that we should allow people who've been discriminated to speak. I think that's a great idea. I think we should also be careful to know that we can't just listen to one side. We also got to go, hey, how can we go to the landlords and say, Mr. Landlord, you you may or may not have discriminated against X person. Why was it you made a decision? How was it you made a decision? And if we're gonna go with this with our subcommittee, I think one thing we should add to that is saying we can't just listen to people who we can't just listen to one side, right? If you only ever listen to landlords, nothing would ever get done, right? Only ever listen to the
People with felony or misdemeanor
thank you.
convictions.
I was looking for the word. I didn't want to offend anyone. Well, then also that like nothing want to get done. So I think if we're gonna have a committee, we got to make sure that we're listening to both sides of the argument, right? Obviously, in your case, there Commissioner St. John's, there absolutely may have been some discrimination. But I also think that with Commissioner Monroe here, there may also have been cases where there was not a lot of discrimination in her cases. So we got to know, hey, is there maybe a certain person has a track record of being anti criminals, right? Or maybe another one has super pro criminals, right? We should look at those people and say, why is it you act the way you act? Why is it you make a decision why is it, you know what I mean? Am I clear? Why are you making the decisions you make?
Before we have Commissioner Jackson speak, I need a motion to extend the meeting because we have 4 minutes till 8. So can I have a motion to extend the meeting till 8:30?
Motion.
I actually had a motion from Commissioner
apologize.
Jackson, but would you like to second? Perfect. All right. So all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
You oppose or I can't, all right. Well, the motion passes. So we're extending till 8:30. So we got mostly ayes and 2 noes.
a very reluctant.
So we are extending till 8:30. They said no. Yes. I think it was mostly being facetious, but count it. It counts.
You'll know. We'll know your disobedience.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson, please.
I just want to, I just want to echo something that was just shared by our commissioner. Just the significance of having different perspectives at the table, I think is so important. And it really forces us to be able to, find a best practice, a best policy. And I'm excited about being able to navigate through this together as a commission, as the HRC. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see and what comes from this subcommittee. And I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Harper.
Yeah, all these perspectives are great. It's going to be able to help us go ahead and move forward in the most fair way that we can. Ultimately, we want to just be as fair as we can And we're gonna figure that out along the way. You know, I think when we're working together, even though we might have some different views, I think, you know, this is the HRC, so we're focusing on Human Relations Commissions, which is connected to equity. We gotta be fair across the board.
I think this is time to move on, but let's make a motion to move the fair housing ordinance discussion and the non-discrimination definitions ordinance discussion to the policy and systems change subcommittees, like first two tasks. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A motion from Commissioner Myers.
Second.
And then a second from Commissioner St. John. All those in favor of moving the fair housing and the non-discrimination definitions ordinances to the policy and systems change subcommittees, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are moving to the discrimination complaint tracking system. So, the current process for the filing a complaint goes through the city attorney, who right now is City Attorney Barr, retiring at the end of December with the new one, starting in January. And City Attorney Barr did, create a, tracking system within his office for us. With the process still the way that it is, I'm wondering though, if the city would be willing or able to add the complaint process or a complaint form to our form center. I know that we have like a YPAC police complaint form. We have our applications to join commissions on those forms to reapply. So I'm wondering, like, to keep everything in like a consolidated place, if there's a way we could add like our complaint process, discrimination complaint process to the form center on the city website.
I can definitely I could definitely update the website. Obviously, whatever it is, it probably have to get some kind of approval.
Okay, so I'm wondering what Mr. Barr already tracks could be turned into a form. And that form could be put on the form center since he's already collecting that information. However, if it's possible just to make that an electronic form as well.
Commissioner Myers had reached out to me, and I had reached out to Attorney Barr and his assistant, and just received a response today regarding what was on, what is he collecting? And there's the list of what's being collected, because we had asked.
Yep.
And they're saying that there are no discrimination complaints since whatever the date was on there, last 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
Those three then.
I saw the list, and I don't.
Yes, I can read it. It's data collected on the tracking system. This is all, I'm really glad to see this visually. I would love for that to be sent out to all of the commissioners. Case name, file number, subject matter, year, outcome, venue. Case name, I'm assuming would be the complainant's name. File number,
Well, maybe not. It could be like the court, like, City of Ypsilanti versus Thomas, could be like that.
okay. So is there a way then to create this, what data they collect right now, into a form? And what exactly does subject matter include? Is that like where the actual complaint is? And then outcome obviously is what happened with the complaint, but is venue the entity that they're alleging discrimination occurred?
It's where it's at.
Okay.
So they may, remember how Attorney Barr said that the person may complain, but it's not handled with the city. It could be
The civil right. Yes. Yep.
Civil rights.
EEO, yeah.
That was it. Or Washtenaw County, the court systems was listed there.
Okay.
And like that. And so I think when he's saying that there's zero, that's what he's really saying, is that nothing stays with us, that it comes and it gets sent out, as from what I was seeing in it.
Right. And I think what we were all really interested in is like seeing what we're getting, because one of the roles here is to study, what is happening in the city as it relates to discrimination. We can issue publications, we can issue reports, we can even issue studies. Like, we as a commission could partner with a research university to actually know what is happening as a housing issue or concern in the city, rather than leaving it up to us who are like non-paid volunteers, attending on this commission, like really being able to collaborate with the research university to really understand what's happening on a ground level as it relates to housing. Like that's something that we have the power to do. And so for us to be able to know that just as like a study amongst us, not necessarily a research university, it would be helpful to know a little bit more about like those things, like the person's name. Obviously that's de-identified for us. We would not need to see that because that's not our business specifically, but like what the alleged discrimination was.
List right there, which are the ones that you're wanting to be able to see? You're wanting the subject, right?
The subject matter, right? Like what was the complaint, right? I think that's what we all agreed on last time. The year, I think also would make sense, and then the outcome. I think it would be nice to know if it did move on somewhere else, like if it's still in the city. But separate of that, like, is it possible to have these items kind of compiled as a form, or create a form that gets to those items as outputs? I'm wondering if that's something that because I think that's something we wanted and voted on earlier already. So would love to see an electronic form come out in the form center.
I don't know. I will find out.
Cool.
And feel free to send me an email with that specifically that I can forward exactly what you're saying. I did write down, but that way I'm for sure getting what you're saying.
All right. I apologize. I don't have this email, so I just need to take a picture of this case number
I'll
thing.
send that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I didn't mean, I'm so sorry, Commissioner Myers. I jotted a little bit of line on there. I'm a doodler. I'm sorry about that. Realized it wasn't my copy as I was doing that. Okay. Do we feel okay moving on to the next new business? All right. New business is solidifying the scope of our joint Human Relations Commission and YPAC IPSI Police Advisory Commission Community Forum Series. And so this will be available online when we make an amendment to our agenda packet. Commissioners, I printed again, as I mentioned, this resolution draft for you all to visually be able to see its front and back. And so the working committee of YPAC and a few of our members under quorum at the time, before the new appointments, met to discuss like what are we really wanting this community forum series to capture. And also we recognize that in order for this to come into fruition, we would need to have a resolution that kind of like goes over how this community forum series fits into both HRC and YPAC scope, and also allows city council and the mayor to visually see like what our goals and action outputs would be. So that way there's no like ambiguity happening and we're kind of really in tune on what's going on or what our expectations would be. So this is the draft. I know it's 8:06, so I think that it would be important to review this together. I think it would make some more sense maybe just to kind of read it separately right now, and then kind of having a conversation about it. So would people feel okay taking the next like 4 minutes or so just reviewing this?
To me.
Okay.
This isn't the same resolution that Attorney Barr already said was not within your scope?
Wait, which one?
I don't know.
I thought it was the body cam footage one.
No, there was two.
I think he said both. Hold on, let me pull out my email,
There was
please.
two.
I would love to know why publicly, what his answer was again.
Yeah, I can pass my phone if you want. So this is from Lori Thomas, presumably from what Attorney Barr had said. Quote, City Attorney Barr carefully reviewed the resolutions proposed by the HRC and YPAC Commission and is of the opinion that the action requested is ultra vires for each board. And then the opinion memos are attached. So if you want, I can pass you my phone and you can read it yourself or read the rest of the email.
I'm gonna check, yeah.
Yeah, I think she said to all of our emails. So
He said, of an opinion, what?
sorry, what?
What did he say again?
Oh yeah, I'll
Read that.
reread it. Sorry, I'll be a little more. City Attorney Barr carefully reviewed the resolutions proposed by the HRC and YPAC Commission and is of the opinion that the action requested is ultra vires for each board. The opinion memos are attached, and that's a number of memos attached for that.
All right, thank you.
What was the date of this email you're reading out loud?
September 17th.
Thank you. I see it. Thank you. Commissioner Harper, do you have something? I thought your hand was raised. It's your pin. It's your pin. Okay.
I'm not gonna move.
This was the reason I did not add the resolution to the agenda packet, but if there's a different one that I'm missing,
You're not. It's the
Okay.
same one that was sent.
okay.
And just for a public note, this is from Google. So look this up. Ultra vires is a Latin phrase used in law to describe an action that requires legal authority but is done without it. Its opposite, an act done with a proper authority, is intra vires. Acts that are intra vires may equivalently be called valid, and those that are ultra vires termed invalid. So
Thank
essentially
you.
he's saying it's bad. You can't do this.
I'm actually reading it more thoroughly right now, and I'm a little confused because Mr. Barr mentions the community wellness community website, indicating the forums are directed at education, healthcare, employment, housing, and transportation. I'm not entirely sure where he got that information from, nor is that what we actually discussed or wrote in that resolution. So I'm not sure if there was a miscommunication among staff or side conversations potentially. I'm not sure, but this resolution that we brought forward as a draft has nothing to do with like health as like a health center or like a community website. We don't even have a website for this forum series. So he mentioned the issues addressed by the community wellness, community health in parentheses are different than the mission and issues of the HRC ordinance discrimination. The HRC ordinance does not charge the HRC with investigating health issues. But this resolution draft that we had thought through doesn't mention health. It mentions the discriminatory processes and practices that help it happen in public safety and mental health, because that's our scope, is to identify the prejudices and the discriminatory practices involved in those services. And so right now we have a lot of people talking about housing, and we have a lot of people talking about mental health and public safety. And so we were thinking about how our commission and the YPAC commission would be able to have this community forum on those subjects as it relates to policing and discrimination. So I'm not sure where Mr. Barr got that from, but I would like to hear from Lori as well, but Commissioner Myers, go ahead.
Is it possible that we can just give both of these resolutions to Attorney Barr and then just wait and table this discussion until he gets back to us?
Yes, you could. And I don't know either. I received both of those memos from Attorney Barr. And it appears that the clerk had asked him because they're directed to the clerk. And I assume maybe something had happened in council, a meeting is, but I don't know. But regardless, yes, we could forward this to him and see if this is what he was referring to. And Chair Layton, if you would like to also point out about the website, if you would send me that, that and questions about this, I can send it to him, get it and send it back to you. And maybe we could table it and then you could bring it back for discussion on the next meeting.
Okay. Let me make a note of that real fast. You're asking me to email you the comment or the point that I read in the memo and also attach this resolution again.
Well, I mean, I can do it, but if someone could direct me.
Yes.
So, to Attorney Barr, the resolution is the memo, meaning this resolution what's has to do with that?
Like, where did you gather the community health
Whatever
community
else
website?
I
Yes,
Have an opinion on.
yes.
And
Um,
just for clarity, I would say nothing happened in council. We didn't make a decision. I'm wondering, was it, you said Tracy, the clerk asked. I'm wondering who asked her? Was it YPAC? Was it somebody from HRC? Who asked her why that question was proposed to Attorney Barr? I don't know if you have that information.
I don't know. I received the email from Attorney Barr with the memos directed to the clerk.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, I will say the goal was that this resolution would be passed or discussed to be passed to bring forward to YPAC, for YPAC to also pass it, to then for it to go forward to council, for them to approve it, hopefully for us to get started on the logistics of planning this community forum series. The goal and intention was to start in August, and it's not happening because we have a lot of logistical things to pan out, and we really want to make sure that this community forum series is a really great opportunity for people to not only like be able to share and listen, but also make sure that actions come of this, because we all have a lot of meetings already that we go to where things don't necessarily come of it. And rather than like making people share their experiences repeatedly, like really making sure that we're having those turned into actionable items. Commissioner Harper, I see your mouth starting to move. Is that a wrong read?
No, I'm sorry.
yeah.
You're going. I was going to let you just go ahead. Yeah, I just think it's really important to emphasize, when you do convey the message back, yeah, this is what we're able to do. This is what we intend to do. This lines up with this, and then add some clarity and see how he responds to exactly what it is we're planning to do with the language that is given to us to do.
Right. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, and again, just the intent again of the community forums is to do our due diligence to listen to our community members along these issues and take that information and create a type of proposal to city council for them to make a decision. And so that'd be interesting to see how this progresses.
And just to clarify, like when we discuss and pass in this particular resolution to go to YPAC, City Attorney Barr reviews it before it goes to council and has opportunity to adjust it and amend it, similar to how the resolution or the ordinance for fair chance housing went through him first, which is where it went to council next. So that's the same process for this. So we, as a body, can still vote if we like this to move it to YPAC because they're meeting next week. And then that will obviously go through City Attorney Barr before it goes to council. So he will have a chance to edit and review. So what are people's thoughts on that?
Are we,
I'm just saying, like, I don't really know if tabling another thing is like the most productive thing, and whether or not we can like try to get the ball rolling on this community forum series that many people on both commissions were very eager to get started, and then helping us kind of push forward to that. I saw Commissioner Myers and then Commissioner St. John.
Awesome. I think we should just, what we could do is while we wait for City Attorney Barr to get back to us, we could just make a resolution and say, hey, City Council, can you please give us the rights to do what we're doing here? You know what I mean? I don't think we necessarily have to be prevented totally completely on just waiting for City Barr to do it. I think what we ought to do is say, vote on this and then vote again to ask City Council to grant us the rights to do this, irregardless of what City Barr might come back to us next week and say about it. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's how the process works.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that because it's a joint YPAC and HRC meeting, we do need to move it to YPAC for them to also vote on it. And Barr would be able to look at it. City Attorney Barr would be able to look at it before YPAC, after YPAC, like any point of the process as it moves along from body to body. Again, I want to be mindful it's 8:17. Commissioner St. John had her hand up first, so I would like to address you with that.
My suggestion would be to table it, because if it is in fact invalid, I don't want to push it forward and then we get in trouble for it, basically. Like, that's not how we want to work either, because the idea is to make this happen. And
Yes.
in order to make that happen, I feel like waiting on Attorney Barr may be the best, just in my personal opinion.
And to clarify, what exactly are we gonna wait for Attorney Barr
We're,
on?
we're tabling the scope of this HRC YPAC Community Forum series until we,
Know what he was referring to in the memo.
correct.
Okay, Commissioner Harper, did you had your hand up before you put it down?
I was just thinking, I'm just wondering, just thinking if he'd be willing to actually come here again, and so we can actually, get some clarity. Sometimes I think it's better face to face, because we can ask questions specifically. So it's just that was a thought.
That's an invite that can definitely be extended to City Attorney Barr. I then we can, if the majority of the commissioners are wanting to table this discussion for next time, then we could just need a motion to do that, proposing that this goes on the next agenda. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Motion. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, sorry, you had thoughts, didn't you? My apologies.
You have to actually say the whole motion out loud too, if you don't mind. Oh, okay, please. So sorry. I've been doing so well all
You've been
tonight.
doing great.
Go
You've been
ahead.
Doing a phenomenal job. I just wanna say.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jackson.
I guess it would be if we do, well, I guess what I was going to share was that maybe we don't have to make a resolution on it at this time. And YPAC has this information as well. And they can, I don't think there's anything preventing them from making a resolution themselves to move it forward. But but in regards to our participation in that forum, I think is really the bigger issue. And I do appreciate the idea of maybe pausing or tabling it, if that's the right term, to wait on Barr's response. I appreciate what John said.
So I think that dependent on when we, I'm actually not, I don't make the agendas for YPAC. I just help out. Well, YPAC helps out with YPAC. We help out with us. And so if we get Mr. Barr's feedback before their meeting, surely they can, add that to their agenda, right? And if we don't get it in time, then that's a conversation we would have to have again at our next meeting. Lori?
I just want to be clear, like the YPAC does their own agenda, so we can't put something on their.
Correct,
agenda.
yes.
And so if it was tabled, we sent it to the city attorney Barr, he says yay or nay. If he says yay, then one of the commissioners could then reach out to YPAC and ask them to put it on their agenda, and then they would be able to move forward at that point.
Is this best on a
And
subcommittee?
then if it's not, if he says no, then you'd be back to talking about it next meeting.
I was gonna say it could be a subcommittee discussion, but it'll eventually have to come back to a decision amongst us. So what do people feel about another special joint meeting to be able to hash that out together before the next HRC meeting, October, whatever day I said, was it 17th? I can't remember, but another joint YPAC HRC meeting to be able to flesh this out more collectively together rather than passing a resolution back and forth.
Yeah, it's probably best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So Lori, I know that's something that I would schedule with the chair of YPAC, correct? Okay.
So are you doing the table thing still?
Yeah.
Yes, we can go ahead and table this for now. And then we will instead, so what we're gonna need are two motions, right? We'll need one motion to table this item to the next HRC meeting, which may not even need to happen because we may settle it in a special joint meeting. So we can just do that in one motion. So it's not two separate ones, right?
I'd like to motion to table this until either the next HSC or YPAC/HRC meeting.
So I hear, just to clarify, I hear a motion from Commissioner Myers to table this joint community forum series resolution scope solidification to the next October 17th HRC meeting, and a motion to host or schedule a special HRC YPAC meeting before October 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. With that motion on the table, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, so I will reach out to Chair Mohammed with the YPAC commission to inquire about that. Moving on, we are now in our second round of public comment. But before we begin, can I have do you think that we'll need to extend the meeting, or do you think we can? You know what? I don't know. We'll go ahead and do public comment right now. So let's go ahead and move into public comment. Again, 3 minutes for the public comments, addressing your comments to commissioners. And Lori here, our staff liaison, will have the timer. So please remain attentive to that. Thank you. First up, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ray Smith. Another solution to some of our housing problems that we could bring up is a push for a tiny home community on the vacant parcels that IPSI owns. This has worked in other communities where they've housed veterans or other people that needed housing. Again, we could work with EMU. They have a construction program where we could be constructing sustainable, affordable, very small, tiny homes for people so that they are not homeless. Another thing too, that HRC, if you're really wanting to tackle the cost of housing here, you could push for the removal of foreign or international buyers in the community. And also push for taxes to step up. One of the bigger problems why people will not buy in IPSI is because if you buy a $300,000 house, you are paying over $10,000 in taxes. So the tax base basically eliminates middle-class people from being inside the community, because again, I make decent money and IPSI's too rich for my blood. About the housing being a basic human right, if I put work into something, it cannot be a right of someone else for that item, because basically then we're arguing for slavery, we're arguing for free labor. So if I put work into creating a hammer, you don't have a right to my hammer. And then also with Wayne County is cheaper than Washtenaw, just because Wayne County in general is cheaper than Washtenaw. It's a situation where, like, I have a 3-bedroom house in Westland that rents out significantly cheaper than the 3-bedroom that I have in IPSI. And the other thing is too, is that I'd be very careful with the non-discrimination procedure or ordinance that you're talking about, because I was so worried about it that now I have made private contracts with certain charity organizations. So now I have 6 units that will never see the light of day. They will never be open to the public. They're automatically going to those charities. So I won't have to run a background check. I don't have to do anything. So it's a situation of, if you create forces in the market, the people within the market will respond. So now these units that I would have regularly put out to the public will never see that. And the only units that I'll have out to the public are the really expensive ones where I know that I won't have this problem. So I basically, everything under 2,200 now is automatically bound to those contracts. Everything over 2,200 where I know I probably won't have that problem is not. So in a way, you have forced my hand. So now that stuff will not be a problem for me. So, yep.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience that would like to leave public comment?
Alexander Monroe again. I think you guys did excellent work tonight. I really appreciate all your work as volunteers here going into the extra late hours. One thing I wanted to mention is, when we're talking about people impacted by the criminal justice system who've done their time, I firmly agree that there should be a path to redemption for people. That's so essential to society working, is we need to be able to learn from our wrongs and change our way of behavior. But one thing that seemed to have been left out of that conversation is, what about the victims who have been murdered or have had their lives taken? It's incredibly important to consider. And I would love to see it at one of these subcommittees, the voices of people, perhaps they've had their family members' lives taken from them, and how that's affected them, and that they should be able to weigh in on that conversation. I really like the comment ahead of me about repurposing land that we can't already be using into low-cost housing. I'm not an expert on the zoning or the ordinances and how all that works, but it would be great if something could be done with Water Street. I also want to echo one of the commissioners here who is pointing out a distinction between rights and goods. I think that I've heard this applied to housing. I've heard it applied to healthcare. I've heard it applied to food, but there are costs that go into the creation of all of these things. Even in states which have comprehensive social systems which cover things like healthcare, there are still nurses, doctors, equipment, testing, science, all these different aspects that go into the delivery of these things, and housing is no different. So I would think that would be better characterized as a form of an entitlement, which I do agree that everyone needs. Everybody needs shelter. We're going to freeze out there in Michigan without a safe, warm roof over our head. So I understand the pressure and the just the knee-jerk gut reaction of not having it. That's a horrible thing. It's just like not having food or not having water. We all need it to survive. So I want to agree with that. Yeah, sorry, there was more, but I lost my train of thought, and it's getting late, so that happens. But yeah, I really do appreciate your work, guys, and I hope to hear more about these subcommittees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, we can't respond to people during public comment, but afterward we can. So is there anyone else in public comment who would like to leave a public comment or public participation? I see a hand raised on Zoom.
Can you extend for at least
Yes.
10 minutes?
Can we do that right now? Okay, before we have our next public comment, can I have a motion to extend the meeting to 8:40? The last time, I promise.
Motion to extend to 8:40.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Monroe. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, please continue on to our public comment via Zoom. And your three,
Yep, Corn, Ipsy Township again. There was a lot of philosophical debate at this Ipsy HRC meeting tonight, and I do look forward to you guys posting the openings for these subcommittees. I certainly intend on volunteering for at least one of them. And I do think, being a community where we care for each other, I think admitting that shelter, if it is not a basic human right, should be, is a really great starting point. And then also trying to start conversations about discrimination, not blaming the folks who are being discriminated against or suspecting the folks who are being discriminated against, but maybe listening to those folks, because that is their experience. And I think a lot of people, when they hear like, hey, the city of Ypsilanti hasn't had a discrimination complaint in 20 years, would automatically think that there's something wrong with the process in which discrimination complaints are either taken or maintained or tracked. Just because as an individual who deals with discrimination, that doesn't necessarily seem feasible, right? Unless like we've solved our issues with discrimination that are like national in the city of Ypsilanti, and then like we need that model to replicate it, I think, across the country. But I don't think that's the case, and I think honestly, like the opportunity to sit down in the subcommittee and really listen to each other for more than 3 minutes at a time is going to do a lot for moving some of this forward. And I am very excited about the work that this commission is doing. And just again, would like to remind you guys that you don't need to ask council for the power to do anything. It says in the charter that council shall endow you with the power to do what you need to do to eliminate discrimination in the city of Ypsilanti. And that's not just in housing. It just says to eliminate discrimination in general in the city of Ypsilanti. So you already have that power. It's written into the charter. And I think you should go ahead and utilize that power to carry out some of the things that you've tasked to carry out.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online or in the audience who would like to leave a public comment? Okay, we are closing public comment and swiftly transitioning into proposed business for next meeting, just to make sure we're all clear. Everyone's going to review the bylaws again with the view of what they can do to be improved or thought through differently, etc. Subcommittee logistics, along with like some listed people to start those subcommittees. The scope of the Joint Community Forum series will also be there should, we will also have a joint commission meeting, but should something happen, we can also have that on our agenda just in case. Did I miss anything for proposed items for next agenda that we know of top of mind? Again, you could always add agenda items up until the Friday before, so there's no need to immediately share what you want to add right now. It's just some thoughts to make sure we're staying on track. Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. This is just an opportunity for commissioners on the Human Relation Commission to share what is going on. But we said till 8:40.
Right, can they have one?
Oh, you could have one, yes.
No, can everybody have 1 minute?
Oh,
if they have something to say?
yes,
So we can
yes,
make
I
that-
love that. Lori, get us with the timer. I'm just kidding. Commissioner House has an excused absence and is not present today. Commissioner St. John, any updates?
No updates.
All right, Commissioner Doulos.
No updates.
All right, Commissioner Harper,
No updates.
Commissioner Jackson.
I just want to thank Alex for the positive comments that you made. Thank you. And that's my only update.
Thank you. I'm next. I think I have some, but I can't think of anything in this moment, given the time as well. So thanks to everyone who did participate in public comment. It's always nice to see people wanting to contribute in some capacity. So I do appreciate that. Commissioner Monroe.
I just want to thank everybody. I'm old and I'm slow. So.
No, you're not.
No, you're not slow.
I'm seasoned, I love
Oh,
Seasoned.
At 73, I'm real seasoned.
you're doing all right.
But it's interesting.
Man, you are not slow.
Well, thank you and welcome again. Commissioner Myers, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the people in the audience, especially Mr. Smith here, for all your suggestions. I really do think that, using government land and government money to help provide for these people who've been disadvantaged, I think it's a really good idea. I really like that idea. Other than that, I want to say, hey, thank you to everyone who's on this council. Thank you for giving me and Mrs. Monroe here, us new commissioners. Thank you for giving us a spot to speak. And thank you for being so welcoming and kind. That's it.
Thank you. Did you raise your hand?
I did this time.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Harper.
I just want to emphasize, just everybody to keep in perspective. We're going to figure out the best ways to work together to make things happen. All right. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, I'm always in proposition or in favor of using government funding and land and opportunities to help serve our people. So I've always appreciate that. And yeah, so now we move into adjournment. Do I have
Wait,
a,
can I say one
oh,
thing?
yes,
right,
Councilmember
here we go.
So
Keen.
speaking of property, Dorsey Estates, the next workshop is September the 26th at 4 p.m. here in council chambers, and it's for Ypsilanti residents only.
And can you say what Dorsey Estates is just real quickly?
Dorsey Estates is for people that are trying to acquire housing. And again, this session is for Ypsilanti residents only, and people will be picked by a lottery, and the lottery date is October the 16th. So all documents would need to be in by October the 14th if you want to be a part of the lottery.
Yeah, and Dorsey Estates is extremely important because it's giving people in the city AMI area an opportunity to get and acquire housing. Just for note, the city of Ypsilanti's area median income for one person is 42,000 approximately versus Washtenaw County's area median income for one person is around 84,000, which is split in half. So the city of Ypsi makes less than half of what the general county's area median income is, which says a lot to like who lives here and who is usually being missed. So thank you for uplifting that, Councilmember King. Okay. With 2 minutes left, do I have a motion to adjourn the
Motion.
meeting? A motion from Commissioner Harper at 8:38 PM and a second from Commissioner Myers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The meeting is now concluded.